The calm before the storm. The research vessel drifted through the void of space, the artifact now safely stored in the ship's secure vault. Commander Elias Grant stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the stars. The loss of Lieutenant Kara Voss weighed heavily on his mind, but he knew they had to press on. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission," the communications officer announced. Grant turned, his brow furrowing. "From where?" The officer shook his head. "Unknown origin. It's coming from deep space." The disturbing message. Grant nodded, his heart pounding. "Put it through." The bridge's main screen flickered to life, revealing a distorted image of the holographic priestess. Her voice was filled with urgency, and the translation software struggled to keep up. "The Great Devourer, not destroyed, only delayed, must find the source, stop it forever." Marlowe's eyes widened in horror. "She's saying the Great Devourer wasn't destroyed. It was only delayed. We need to find its source and stop it for good." "The new mission." Grant's jaw tightened. "Then that's what we'll do. Set a course for the coordinates the Priestess provided. We need to find the source of the Great Devourer and end this once and for all." The team sprang into action, their grief replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. They knew the road ahead would be dangerous, but they also knew they had no choice. The fate of the galaxy depended on them. The journey begins. As the ship entered hyperspace, Grant couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over him. The Priestess's warning, the artifact, the Great Devourer, it all pointed to a battle that would test them in ways they couldn't imagine. "We'll find the source," Grant said, his voice firm. "And we'll stop it. For Kara. For all of us." The team nodded, their resolve unwavering. They knew the journey ahead would be fraught with danger, but they also knew they had to see it through. The Great Devourer had to be stopped, no matter the cost. To be continued. Part 5, The Source of the Great Devourer. The arrival. The ship emerged from hyperspace, the coordinates provided by the Priestess leading them to a remote sector of the galaxy. The team gathered on the bridge, their eyes fixed on the view screen. "There it is," Marlowe said, her voice filled with awe. Before them loomed a massive structure, its dark, jagged edges cutting through the void of space. The structure pulsed with a malevolent energy, and the team could feel its presence even from a distance. "That's the source," Grant said, his voice grim. "The Great Devourer." The descent. The team prepared for the descent, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. They knew this was their final chance to stop the Great Devourer, and they couldn't afford to fail. "Stay alert," Grant ordered as they boarded the shuttle. "We don't know what we're walking into." As the shuttle approached the structure, the team could feel the malevolent energy growing stronger. The air was thick with tension, and the weight of their mission pressed down on them. The encounter. The shuttle docked with the structure, and the team stepped out into the darkness. The walls were lined with pulsating veins of energy, and the air was filled with a low, ominous hum. "This place. It's alive," Marlowe whispered, her voice trembling. Grant nodded, his hand resting on his sidearm. "Stay close. We need to find the heart of this thing and destroy it." The return to the ship. The shuttle docked smoothly with the research vessel, and the team quickly transferred the artifact to the secure lab. Commander Elias Grant watched as Dr. Lila Marlowe and her team began their initial analysis. The artifact's soft blue glow filled the room, casting an otherworldly light on the scientists' faces. "We need to be cautious," Grant reminded them. "We don't know what this thing is capable of." Marlowe nodded, her eyes never leaving the artifact. "Understood, Commander. But we can't afford to waste any time. This could be the most significant discovery of our lifetimes." The first contact. As the team worked, the artifact began to emit a low hum, similar to the one they had heard at the excavation site. Suddenly, a holographic image projected from the artifact, showing a figure with elongated limbs and large, expressive eyes. The figure spoke in a language that none of them understood, but the tone was unmistakably urgent. "What is it saying?" Grant asked, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm. Marlowe quickly activated the ship's translation software. It's a warning," she said, her voice trembling. "It's saying that the artifact is a key to something called the Great Devourer. The Priestess's vision." The holographic figure continued to speak, its voice growing more urgent. Marlowe translated as best she could, piecing together the fragments of the message. "It seems this figure was a priestess of the ancient tribe," Marlowe explained. "She's warning us about the Great Devourer, a force that consumed their civilization. The artifact is the only thing that can stop it, but it requires a sacrifice." Grant's eyes narrowed. "What kind of sacrifice?" Marlowe hesitated before answering. "A life. The priestess says that someone must willingly give their life to activate the artifact and stop the Great Devourer." The decision. The room fell silent as the weight of the priestess's words sank in. Grant looked around at his team, each of them grappling with the enormity of the decision they now faced. "We can't just sacrifice someone," one of the scientists protested. "There has to be another way." Marlowe shook her head. "According to the priestess, there isn't. The Great Devourer is already on its way. If we don't act soon, it will consume us all." The plan. Grant took a deep breath, his mind racing. "We need more information. Marlowe, see if you can get more details from the priestess. The rest of you, start preparing for the worst. If this Great Devourer is as dangerous as she says, we need to be ready." As the team sprang into action, Grant couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. The artifact, the priestess's warning, the impending threat, it all pointed to a battle that they might not survive. The countdown begins. Hours passed as Marlowe worked tirelessly to decode the rest of the priestess's message. The artifact's hum grew louder, and the holographic figure became more agitated. "We're running out of time," Marlowe said, her voice filled with urgency. "The Great Devourer is closer than we thought. We need to make a decision now." Grant looked around at his team, each of them waiting for his command. He knew what had to be done, but the cost. The cost was almost too great to bear. The excavation begins. The sons of Helios 7 beat down mercilessly on the excavation site, their twin rays creating a shimmering haze over the ancient ruins. Commander Elias Grant adjusted his visor, the synthetic fabric of his uniform clinging to his skin despite the advanced cooling technology. His sharp blue eyes scanned the site, taking in the meticulous work of his team. 30 years of service had etched lines of experience into his face, and his once jet-black hair was now streaked with silver. "Anything yet, Dr. Marlowe?" Grant called out, his voice carrying over the hum of equipment. Dr. Lila Marlowe, the lead archaeologist, looked up from her work, her hazel eyes gleaming with excitement behind her protective goggles. "This is incredible, Commander," she replied, brushing dust from what appeared to be a control panel embedded in the ancient structure. "These inscriptions, they don't match any known language in the galactic archives. Based on the decay rate of the surrounding materials, I estimate this structure is at least 50,000 years old." The mysterious artifact. Grant approached cautiously, careful not to disturb the excavation grid. The structure was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Its walls were made of a material that seemed to absorb light, giving it an almost otherworldly appearance. "Dar." Marlowe continued her work, a low hum began to emanate from the control panel. "Do you hear that?" Marlowe asked, her voice tinged with both excitement and apprehension. Grant nodded, his hand instinctively moving to the sidearm at his hip. The hum grew louder, and suddenly, the ground beneath them began to tremble. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a dark passageway. "Stay alert," Grant ordered, his voice firm. We don't know what we're dealing with here. The descent into darkness. With flashlights in hand, Grant and Marlowe ventured into the passageway. The air was cool and damp, a stark contrast to the scorching heat outside. The walls were lined with intricate carvings, depicting scenes of an ancient civilization. As they moved deeper, the carvings became more detailed, showing a tribe of beings with elongated limbs and large, expressive eyes. These carvings, they tell a story, Marlowe whispered, her voice filled with awe. It seems this tribe was once a powerful force in the galaxy. But something happened, something that led to their downfall. The encounter. As they reached the end of the passageway, they found themselves in a large chamber. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested a glowing artifact. The artifact pulsed with a soft, blue light, casting eerie shadows on the walls. "This is it," Marlowe said, her voice trembling with excitement. This could be the key to understanding this civilization. But before they could approach the artifact, a low growl echoed through the chamber. Grant spun around, his sidearm at the ready. From the shadows emerged a creature, its elongated limbs and large eyes matching the carvings on the walls. The creature let out a guttural sound, its gaze fixed on the artifact. "Stay behind me," Grant ordered, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. The creature lunged, but Grant was ready. He fired a shot, the energy blast hitting the creature square in the chest. It let out a piercing scream before collapsing to the ground. "We need to get out of here," Grant said, his eyes scanning the chamber for any more threats. The revelation. As they made their way back to the surface, Marlowe couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled upon something far greater than they had anticipated. The artifact, the carvings, the creature. It all pointed to a civilization that had once thrived but had been wiped out by some unknown force. "We need to study this artifact," Marlowe said as they emerged into the sunlight. "It could hold the key to understanding what happened to them and maybe even prevent it from happening to us." Grant nodded, his mind racing with the implications of their discovery. "Agreed. But we need to be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with here." The journey continues. As the team packed up their equipment and prepared to leave the site, Grant couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The discovery of the artifact had opened up a Pandora's box of questions, and he knew that their journey was far from over. "Let's get back to the ship," Grant said, his voice firm. "We have a lot of work to do." As they boarded their shuttle and left the planet behind, the artifact pulsed softly in its containment unit, a silent reminder of the mysteries that lay ahead. The final warning. The artifact's hum had reached a deafening pitch, and the holographic priestess's image flickered with increasing urgency. Dr. Lila Marlowe's hands flew over the console, her eyes darting between the translation software and the artifact. "Commander, we have to act now," she said, her voice strained. "The Great Devourer is almost here. The Priestess says we have less than an hour before it reaches us." Commander Elias Grant clenched his fists, his mind racing. The weight of the decision bore down on him like a physical force. He looked at his team, each of them waiting for his command. "Is there no other way?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Marlowe shook her head, her eyes filled with sorrow. "According to the Priestess, the artifact requires a life to activate. There's no other way to stop the Great Devourer." The volunteer. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Then, a voice broke the silence. "I'll do it." All eyes turned to Lieutenant Kara Voss, the ship's chief engineer. Her face was pale, but her eyes were steady. "Kara, no," Grant said, his voice filled with anguish. "We can't ask this of you." Kara stepped forward, her resolve unwavering. "You're not asking, Commander. I'm volunteering. If this is what it takes to save everyone, then I'll do it." The preparation. The team moved quickly, preparing the artifact for activation. Kara stood at the center of the room, her hands resting on the artifact's surface. The soft blue light enveloped her, casting an ethereal glow. "Are you sure about this, Kara?" Marlowe asked, her voice trembling. Kara nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "I've always believed in doing what's right, no matter the cost. This is my chance to make a difference." The activation. As the final preparations were completed, the artifact's hum reached a crescendo. Kara closed her eyes, her breathing steady. The team watched in silence, their hearts heavy with grief and admiration. Activating the artifact in 3, 2, 1. Marlowe counted down, her voice breaking. The room was filled with a blinding light, and for a moment, everything seemed to stand still. Then, the light faded, and the artifact fell silent. Kara's body slumped to the ground, her life force absorbed by the artifact. The aftermath. The team stood in stunned silence, the weight of Kara's sacrifice pressing down on them. Grant knelt beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder. "She gave everything to save us," he said, his voice filled with sorrow. "We can't let her sacrifice be in vain." Marlowe nodded, tears streaming down her face. "The great devourer, it's gone. The artifact worked. The legacy." As the team mourned Kara's loss, they knew that her sacrifice had saved them all. The artifact, now dormant, was a reminder of the price they had paid for their survival. "We'll never forget her," Grant said, his voice firm. "Her courage, her selflessness, she will always be a part of us." The team gathered around Kara's body, each of them saying their final goodbyes. As they prepared to leave the planet, they knew that their journey was far from over. The artifact, the Priestess's warning, the great devourer. It was all part of a larger mystery that they had only just begun to unravel.